The average Sydney household will hand over $700,000 in rent over the next 20 years, not a mortgage. Rent, no equity, no asset, no return. Just $700,000 handed to someone else for the right to keep living where you already live. Here is what nobody puts on a billboard. Australia has more landmass per person than almost any country on Earth. Scattered across it are communities where people cracked the code decades ago, towns where houses cost less than a used car, where solar eliminates the electricity bill permanently, where water comes out of the ground warm or falls from the sky faster than you can store it. I found 10 of them, and number 1 is not just the cheapest or the most remote. It is the only town on this list where the hard work is already done, where you buy a fully functioning off-grid setup and never see a utility bill again without figuring any of it out yourself. That entry alone is worth staying for. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. Number 10, Marble Bar, Western Australia. Here is a dare. Google the most extreme place to live in Australia. Every serious result leads here. Marble Bar, Western Australia, population 200. Official holder of the world record for consecutive days above 37.8 degrees Celsius, 160 days straight, set in the 1920s. Never beaten since. Most people read that and immediately close the tab. Those people will keep paying rent forever. Because here is what extreme heat actually means in practical terms for someone thinking clearly about energy. Over 3,700 hours of sunshine annually, among the highest figures recorded anywhere in the country. Solar panels operating at near maximum output year-round. A battery bank that almost never runs low. Air conditioning that costs you nothing because the same sun making the landscape uninhabitable is powering the entire house. The heat is the asset, if you are set up correctly. Houses in Marble Bar start at $40,000. Residential blocks sell for under $5,000. The Pilbara region holds some of the richest mineral country on Earth, and nearby fly-in fly-out mining operations offer wages that look absurd sitting next to a $40,000 mortgage. A tradesman I spoke with bought his house for $44,000 and spent $12,000 on a serious solar setup. He does contract mining work 4 months a year and does exactly what he wants for the other 8. He told me adapting to the heat took 1 summer. The mortgage-free life, he said, is something you never recover the appetite to give up. The trade-off is genuine isolation. Port Hedland is 200 kilometres away. This is not for anyone who needs a hospital within the hour. But for those willing to adapt, the solar mathematics at Marble Bar are some of the most compelling in the country. The sun here is not an obstacle. It is the entire financial model. Number 9, Georgetown, Queensland. Most of the people on this list are running from something. Rent, mortgage stress, the slow drain of city living. The people who moved to Georgetown came to find something. Georgetown sits in the Etheridge Shire of far north Queensland. Population 350, and the ground beneath the town sits on one of Australia's most underexplored mineral zones. Sapphires, topaz, garnets, quartz crystals of unusual clarity. The region has been producing gemstones for over a century, and fossickers still pull them out of the creeks today. Land here runs $8,000 to $15,000 for residential blocks. Houses start at $55,000, but the fossicking transforms the psychological texture of life in a way that cheap land alone cannot replicate. When you own ground, you can legally prospect. Every weekend becomes a real hunt. Most people never find retirement funding quantities of stones, but many find enough to cover groceries, fund their hobbies, or simply experience the specific satisfaction of reaching into earth that has not been touched in 100 million years and pulling out something beautiful. That changes a life. Quietly, but permanently. Cairns is roughly 4 hours north. Not close, but the town is not off the edge of the map either. Annual rainfall of around 600 millimetres supports functional tank water setups, and the North Queensland sunshine delivers solid solar output. A couple I spoke with left Brisbane because they wanted life to feel genuinely interesting, rather than a repeating obligation. They bought 5 acres with a house for $72,000. They have not found life-changing gemstone quantities, but they told me life here surprises them regularly. Their Brisbane existence, they said, never did that once. Georgetown is not for everyone. Cairns is a serious drive for specialist medical care. But for those drawn to natural discovery and the specific reward of hunting something real in the ground beneath their feet, the combination here is unlike anywhere else on this list. Number 8, Menindee, New South Wales. Every other town on this list leads with affordability. Menindee leads with something else, and the affordability happens to come with it. This is the most visually spectacular location on the list. The Menindee Lakes system, a series of natural lake basins fed by the Darling River, creates an inland waterscape that has no business existing in this part of New South Wales. Pelicans, waterbirds in the thousands in flood years, sunsets over still water that photographers drive hundreds of kilometres to capture, the kind of landscape that genuinely changes how you feel when you wake up each morning. Population 500, houses from $50,000, land from $8,000. Broken Hill is 110 kilometres away, a genuine regional centre with 18,000 people, a hospital with real capacity, and an airport, accessible in roughly an hour when you need it. The Cloncurry National Park sits on the town's doorstep, and the fishing in a good water season is exceptional. The catch, and it matters, is water variability. The Darling River system has faced serious environmental pressure in recent years. Drought cycles here can be brutal. Water security requires substantial tank infrastructure and clear-eyed planning before you arrive, not after you do. But here is what nobody says about Menindee. Beauty matters. This sounds obvious, but almost every off-grid conversation reduces to dollars and kilowatts and neglects the psychological weight of where you actually spend your days. Studies consistently show that people living in extraordinary natural environments report significantly higher well-being. The lake system that occasionally creates a water management headache is the same lake system that on a still morning in winter makes you stand outside just to look at it. Solar potential here is outstanding. The skies above Western New South Wales are some of the clearest in the country. Number 7. Cloncurry, Queensland. Let me run some numbers. Cloncurry, population 3,200, is 120 kilometres from Mount Isa. Mount Isa is a mining city of 18,000 people with a full hospital, a functioning airport, and a Glencore copper zinc operation employing thousands. Cloncurry sits in its economic orbit at a fraction of the price. Houses in Cloncurry range from $80,000 to $130,000 for solid family homes. For anyone with skills that translate to mining, construction, logistics, or services, Mount Isa employment is a realistic daily option without the Mount Isa property price. That combination, genuine employment access alongside Outback prices, almost never appears on the same map. Here it does. Now the solar calculation. Cloncurry was long believed to hold Australia's highest temperature on record, 53.1 degrees Celsius, measured in 1889, a figure still embedded in local identity even after the Bureau of Meteorology reclassified it due to non-standard equipment. The underlying reality remains, the solar irradiance in this region is among the highest measured anywhere in the country. A properly sized solar and battery setup here pays itself off in under 3 years against grid electricity costs. After that, the power is free, permanently. In a climate where air conditioning is not a luxury, that is not a minor budget line. It is a compounding financial advantage that runs for the life of the system. Here is what that looks like across a decade. Someone who buys a $100,000 house in Cloncurry, spends $15,000 on solar, and earns a Mount Isa wage for 10 years will accumulate a financial position that a Sydney counterpart earning the same salary cannot match. The Sydney version of that decade costs $350,000 in rent alone. Trade-off, genuine Outback heat, and the psychological commitment that remote living requires. But for the combination of affordable housing, accessible employment, and best-in-country solar production, the numbers at Cloncurry make a compelling case. Number 6. Winton, Queensland. Right. Forget utility bills for a moment. Let me ask you something different. When was the last time something about where you live genuinely surprised you? Winton, population 900, sits 1,150 kilometres northwest of Brisbane. It is the town where Waltzing Matilda was first publicly performed in 1895, written by Banjo Patterson at a nearby station, and debuted at the North Gregory Hotel, before an audience that included the Premier of Queensland. It is also where paleontologists keep pulling Cretaceous-era dinosaur bones out of the dirt, and where the Australian Age of Dinosaurs Museum has become one of the most significant fossil repositories in the Southern Hemisphere. Fossicking is legal in designated areas around Winton. You will not pull a titanosaur out of your backyard, but the landscape carries a geological weight that changes how you think about ordinary days. When the ground beneath your house is 100 million years old and occasionally gives up something extraordinary, the texture of life here is simply different from anywhere else. Properties start from $65,000. Vacant land runs $10,000 to $25,000 depending on size. Longreach is 180 kilometres south, with a regional centre and airport providing backup for anything Winton cannot handle. I spoke with a retiree who left the Gold Coast to spend his retirement fossil hunting. He paid $70,000 for a house on acreage. Over 5 years, he has found fossilised marine shells, ancient wood specimens, and once, Something a geologist friend confirmed as a sauropod bone fragment. He sold that last piece for enough to cover 6 months of groceries. He told me he does not miss the coast. He said the coast was where life happened to him. Winton is where he actually lives it. The Outback Queensland sunshine here delivers excellent solar output. The trade-off is genuine remoteness. Winton is not for those who want convenience alongside affordability. It is for those willing to trade convenience for discovery. Number 5. Quilpie, Queensland. I want to describe something that sounds like it belongs in Iceland. Hot water, from the ground, for free, for the rest of your life. Quilpie, population 600, sits on the Great Artesian Basin, one of the largest underground freshwater reservoirs on Earth. Bore water here does not just come up drinkable, it comes up warm, hot enough that residents use it directly for bathing and household purposes, drawn from beneath the earth at no cost, using a resource that has been recharging underground for millions of years. Combine that with Outback Queensland's relentless sunshine for solar, and nature is providing 2 of the 3 major utility costs entirely for free. The third, drinking water, requires tank management and occasional truck delivery, but at a fraction of what urban households pay for the whole package. Houses run $50,000 to $80,000 for solid properties in a community with real infrastructure for its size. Drill a bore, install solar, set up tanks. Your electricity is free. Your hot water is free. I talked to retirees who had done exactly this calculation before moving. They now spend more on internet than on all other utilities combined, because, as they put it, there are no other utilities. The Channel country surrounding Quilpie floods spectacularly in wet years, transforming flat red plains into a slow inland sea stretching to every horizon. In dry years, it is red earth and silence. Either version is extraordinary. The trade-off is genuine remoteness. Roma is 450 kilometers east. This is a committed lifestyle choice, not a compromise position. But for those who have genuinely run the numbers on off-grid living, Quilpie's artesian water makes the resource equation here unlike anywhere else in the country. Number 4. Tara, Queensland. Stop whatever you are doing and look at this number, 18 cents per square metre. That is the price of land in parts of Tara, Queensland. Not $18, 18 cents. A 4,000 square metre residential block for under $800. A 5-acre property with a house for around $95,000. And Tara is 300 kilometres from Brisbane, 3 to 3.5 hours by car, a drive you can do on a Sunday morning and be back the same night. In a property market where Brisbane median house prices have crossed $900,000, that sentence should not be possible. It is possible. The Western Downs landscape surrounding Tara is open agricultural plains, big sky, practical, working country. Not trendy, not tourist-facing, just real. The kind of town where people actually know each other. A young family I spoke with escaped Brisbane rent by buying 5 acres with a house for $95,000. They installed solar, started growing vegetables, and now have chickens, a garden, their kids playing outside, and savings growing instead of disappearing. They told me their Brisbane friends spend more on rent in 10 months than they paid for the entire property. Brisbane visits take 3 hours. Brisbane friends can come to them. One thing that must be said plainly, coal seam gas activity in some parts of the Western Downs is part of why land here is as cheap as it is. This is not hidden. It is not insurmountable. Many specific properties are entirely unaffected, but you must research individual land parcels before buying. Due diligence here is not optional. It is the entire game. For remote workers, young families, and anyone who cannot psychologically commit to deep outback but has run the rent numbers and felt sick, Tara is the entry point. Capital city proximity at outback prices is a combination this list almost cannot offer anywhere else. Number 3. Broken Hill, New South Wales. Every other place on this list asks you to give something up. Broken Hill asks for very little, just under 18,000 people, a hospital with real specialist capacity, an airport with regular services to Sydney and Adelaide, supermarkets, restaurants, galleries, mechanics, dentists, a swimming pool, an actual arts scene. A city with everything a functioning city needs, that also happens to have houses starting from $50,000 and over 3,000 hours of sunshine a year. Broken Hill is Australia's first heritage-listed city. The art scene is extraordinary for a regional centre of this size. The Brushmen of the Bush, a group of artists who emerged from the mining community in the 1970s, built a cultural identity here that still runs a tourism economy and makes Broken Hill feel genuinely alive rather than merely surviving. This is not a town waiting to die. It has been reinventing itself since silver was first pulled from the ground in 1883. Install a full solar setup, grow a vegetable garden, walk to a restaurant on Friday night, use the hospital when you need it, fly to Sydney for a long weekend, live in a house you own outright for less than most people in Sydney, pay in rent across 4 months. A Melbourne couple I spoke with expected to feel like they were settling. She said the actual surprise was that Broken Hill felt like arriving somewhere, not retreating from somewhere. It felt like a choice they had made, not a concession they had accepted. Trade-off. Distance from capitals. You are 1,100 kilometres from Sydney and 500 from Adelaide, but the town itself is largely self-sufficient. You do not need to leave for daily life. Broken Hill is the civilized version of everything else on this list, which is exactly why it sits at number 3 and not higher. Number 2, Coober Pedy, South Australia. I want you to think about your energy bill, specifically the 2 biggest variables in it: heating in winter, cooling in summer. The reason your bill doubles in February and doubles again in July. The reason every off-grid setup needs to be sized for the worst-case day, not the average one. The reason air conditioning alone can consume more power than everything else in a house combined. Now imagine eliminating both. Not with better technology, with physics. Coober Pedy, population around 1,800, sits 846 kilometres north of Adelaide. 60% of residents live underground in homes called dugouts, carved directly into the rock. Inside a dugout, temperature holds between 19 and 23 degrees Celsius year-round. No heating system, no cooling system, ever. The Earth itself acts as perfect insulation in both directions simultaneously. The surface hits 48 degrees in summer. It is completely irrelevant. You live underground. Underground dugouts sell for $70,000 to $110,000. Above-ground houses go cheaper, $50,000 to $80,000, but carry the full energy burden of a conventional home. The mathematics strongly favor going down. The genius of Coober Pedy for anyone thinking about off-grid costs is this: your solar system can be dramatically smaller than anywhere else on this list because you have removed the 2 largest power consumers from the equation entirely: lighting, appliances. That is it. Climate control does not exist as a cost because the climate never changes where you actually live. And when you need more space, you dig another room. A long-term resident told me his entire electricity need is so minimal that a small rooftop setup covers everything. He said the surface can do whatever it wants. Underground, he has been comfortable in a t-shirt since 1997. The genuine trade-off is water. With only 144 millimetres of annual rainfall, among the lowest in Australia, water must be trucked or carefully harvested. This is a real and ongoing cost that does not disappear. But set against zero heating and zero cooling for the rest of your life, most Coober Pedy residents say the total equation still runs overwhelmingly in their favour. Number 1. Lightning Ridge, New South Wales. Everything else on this list is something you build. Lightning Ridge is something you buy into. Population just under 2,000, around 750 kilometres from Sydney, Outback, New South Wales. And for the last 50 years, a community of opal miners, artists, eccentrics, and quiet escapees has been refining what self-sufficient living actually looks like in practice, not the social media version, the version that works at 45 degrees when you need to get on with your day. The result is a property market that exists nowhere else in Australia. Miners' camps here, basic dwellings on mining leases, sell for $45,000 to $70,000. Not for a shell, for a functioning off-grid setup, solar panels already on the roof, water tanks already installed, septic system already running. Sometimes furniture. Previous owners spent the money, made the mistakes, refined the systems over years of actual use, and moved on. You're buying the finished version of someone else's education. Townhouses run $55,000 to $120,000, many with existing infrastructure already in place. The free artesian bore baths at the edge of town provide hot water for bathing drawn from underground at no cost, a feature so embedded in daily life here that locals barely mention it. The 300-plus sunny days per year means solar banks charge fully on almost every single day. The fossicking culture means residents can legally prospect for opals on their own time, and while it is not a business plan, some find enough over the years to cover meaningful costs. Here is what a resident who bought 8 years ago described. Battery bank full every morning from the day before. Bore baths several times a week. Opals on weekends, mostly for pleasure. Over 8 years, he found enough stone to cover the cost of his solar system twice over, a bonus on top of a life that already cost almost nothing to run. His Sydney friends told him he was throwing his life away. They visit now, he said, and they go home very quiet. Lightning Ridge ranks number 1 not because it is the cheapest, and not because the climate is easy. Summer here is brutal. and 750 kilometers from Sydney is genuinely far. It ranks number 1 because 50 years of accumulated community knowledge has already solved every problem that would take a newcomer years to work through alone. Water, power, heat, supply lines, belonging, all of it was figured out before off-grid living was a trend, and all of it is available to anyone willing to show up. You are not a pioneer at Lightning Ridge. You are joining a civilization that built itself outside the system long before it was fashionable to do so. 12 years of rent in Sydney buys you nothing. The same money in any town on this list buys you a house, a solar system, water infrastructure, and the first real financial breathing room most Australians will never experience. The alternatives have always existed. The only thing that was ever stopping you was not knowing where to look. Now you do.